Joining us now, House Budget Ranking Member. He is Congressman Jason Smith, along with Fox News contributor and the Hill media columnist Joe Concha. First to you, Congressman. Okay, there's that going on right now in Washington. Of course, the Supreme Court Justice story is a big one. But here's the other thing, Congressman. Nancy Pelosi wants more spending on Ukraine. Biden's deputy NSA says Ukraine matters because, quote, borders should be respected. Americans are angry. What about the collapse at the border?
You know, Americans are concerned about all the crises that Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer are creating in the United States, including the border crisis, where more than 1.5 million illegals have crossed the southern border in the last year. And Nancy Pelosi is more concerned about the border in Ukraine. Give me a break.
To the congressman's point. Go ahead, Congressman.
The best way to say about Washington Democrats is their leadership is incompetent. They're out of touch with real Americans, and they're failing at every policy that they're trying to push.
Yes. So to the congressman's point, Joe, we've got two cops shot in Ferguson, Missouri. One in critical. One was shot. He was shot in the stomach. We've got a guy, for example, in a hospital in the Bronx shot. What will Pelosi and Biden do to stop crime, including in Pelosi's home state? We've got now 22 cities seeing a 44% increase in homicides.
Thank you for bringing up Pelosi's home state, or even let's talk about San Francisco and her district. When was the last time you heard Nancy Pelosi talk about solutions to crime in San Francisco? When was the last time you saw the president of the United States flanked by police officers or police unions and saying, this is enough, this will not stand? What we saw in Harlem, obviously, with 2 cops shot dead. You brought up all the other cops that were shot in Missouri or Washington, D.C. You go around the country, and the president is basically silent on this, hiding behind his press secretary, who puts out boilerplate statements on how they're spending money on this or that. But there's really no passion towards this issue at this point. Never judge Joe Biden on his words. I think we've learned now, Liz. Always judge him on his actions, and his actions towards crime have been basically non-existent.
Yeah, to Joe's point, he's making an important one. What are they doing, right, Congressman? I mean, we hear the president will be coming to New York City to talk to the newly elected mayor here. So there's that, right? He's going to do that. But, border agents are slamming Biden's DHS Secretary Mayorkas, literally turning their backs on him.
It's unacceptable. Nancy Pelosi always said that a budget is a statement of your values. The budget that Joe Biden released back in May, which was the latest budget in the history of the United States of any president submitted to Congress, the increase for security for the border was 0%, but everything else averaged an increase of 16%. What does the Democrat Party want to do? They want to defund the police. What does the Democrat Congresswoman Cori Bush from the city of St. Louis, which covers Ferguson, Missouri, in my home state, what is her solution to the police? She wants to defund them. This is what's causing law enforcement not to be safe, and it's unacceptable. And the American people's had enough with these policies that the Democrats are trying to shove down our throats.
Joe, you probably saw the footage of the PBA chief, Patrick Lynch, here in New York City saying, we're heartbroken, we're buckling, we're on our knees. We told you this was going to happen, and now 2 cops again shot. Now, the former President Trump, another rally in Houston this weekend, he's going to capitalize on this. We got a new poll from Pew Research. Majority of voters disapprove of President Biden on 8 major issues. Unifying the country is tops. He promised about that. The pandemic, economy, all of it. Voters are saying no to this. But if the pandemic or inflation recedes, will he see a pop in the polls?
Oh, I think with inflation, definitely. I think people expect at this point, they know what's going on with Omicron. They see that the cases are now shooting precipitously down just as quickly as they came up in December. I don't know if Biden gets too much credit on that front, considering how poorly he handled testing. Inflation, on the other hand, that's something people feel. But let's say inflation isn't at a 40-year high anymore and it goes down to, say, a 30 or 20-year high. That is still a major increase. And once people start getting their home heating bills for this winter, they already are. But when it adds up in February and March, they're still going to be angry about that. Obviously, crime as well. Education, which we haven't talked about yet. Democrats now seen as the anti-parent party. But I see this big news today around Justice Breyer today, Elizabeth, and I don't see this development around his retirement being any real game changer. If a conservative on the bench had announced his or her retirement and that justice was replaced by a liberal, that's a different ballgame. But the court still remains 6-3 or 5-4 here, depending how you look at Chief Justice Roberts. So I don't see this as this is the big break that Biden needs. All he's doing is replacing one liberal with another, but they're still basically outnumbered 6-3. So let's talk about things that really matter to people: inflation, crime, and education.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, that's what Joe is talking about, right? Because, by the way, President Biden blamed inflation spikes on car prices, that the components are going up. But, Congressman, that's just a third of the increase. Main Street is getting slammed across the board. Even economists like Obama economist Jason Furman warns the U.S. has much more inflation than almost any advanced country in the world. I mean, it's like Back to the Future. It's only a few times since the late 60s, early 70s, early 80s, that we've been here where we see real interest rates in such deep negative territory after inflation. I mean, so, if you see small businesses reporting that their prices are tripling, I mean, isn't that a wake-up call for the media and everybody say, hey, let's get on the stick? Why does Nancy Pelosi want to spend more money on Ukraine and China with slush funds for the UN?
Liz, Joe Biden tries to blame everyone else for his crises that he's created. Inflation, without a doubt, is the direct result of more than $7.5 trillion in new spending that the Democrats tried to pass out of the House this year. They started with a $2 trillion COVID package that they said that was for COVID relief, but less than 9% actually went toward spending. That's what's increasing the prices in the supermarket. But this White House, they only care about the prices in the stock market. It's unacceptable. They're out of touch with Americans.
Got it. Great segment with Congressman Jason Smith and Joe Concha. It's great to have you both on the show. Come back again soon.